Michelle thinks American men suck.
Let me warn you, your rage does not exist in a vacuum. If we don't get this election right, your wife, your daughter, your mother, we as women will become collateral damage to your rage. To the women listening, we have every right to demand that the men in our lives do better.
Gutfeld didn't just criticize Michelle Obama, he tore apart her carefully crafted image with sharp sarcasm and surgical precision. Stripping away the gloss, he revealed a stark contrast between her polished public persona and the subtle political maneuvers she's been making behind the scenes. It wasn't mere commentary, it was a calculated takedown that dismantled the untouchable aura surrounding her. By the end of his monologue, even her most devoted supporters were left questioning whether the former First Lady, once hailed as the Queen of Grace, had started to drift from the truth.
Have to use our voices to make these choices clear to the men that we love. Our lives are worth more than their anger and disappointment.
What's that pitter-patter sound I'm hearing in the background? It's the footsteps of Barack running to vote for Trump. So, Kat, they know that they're having a hard time with men.
Right.
Doesn't seem like this is the right strategy.
No.
She basically says that...
Greg Gutfeld didn't just walk into the studio that night, he strutted in with the swagger of a man about to wreck someone's PR strategy. The evening's target, Michelle Obama, former First Lady, media mogul, podcast queen, and master of strategic vagueness wrapped in a Nike deal. Gutfeld was fired up, coming in hot like a caffeinated raccoon with a grudge and a live mic. "Let's talk about Michelle," he said, spinning his pen like a dagger, ready to dissect her carefully. Curated public persona with ruthless flair.
Even if they run Michelle. According to a new poll, Michelle Obama isn't as strong a Democratic candidate against former President Donald Trump as many Dems would have you believe. In a hypothetical matchup, my favorite kind, Trump wins with 47% of the vote compared to Michelle Obama's 44%. I guess some of the kids whose school lunches she ruined are finally old enough to vote.
If you're enjoying this breakdown, don't forget to subscribe. Boom, the table was set. Gutfeld kept slicing. He joked, her memoir is called Becoming a Billionaire by telling us how hard it is to live in a mansion and still be expected to smile. Then came the real twist. Have you noticed the pattern? He asked. Every interview is a masterclass in strategic victimhood. Michelle is always overcoming, always rising, which is impressive, considering she's been on top for about 15 years. The crowd laughed even harder this time, because beneath the sarcasm was a truth so sharp, it didn't just sting. It landed like a punch in polished packaging.
Continue to escalate for the Obamas. Hopefully they can settle it like men.
Now don't get me wrong, Gutfeld said, feigning innocence like a cat with feathers in its mouth. She's smart, she's charismatic, she's accomplished. Then he paused, eyes glinting. But let's not act like she's some underdog, clawing her way out of the rubble. She's not Rocky Balboa, she's a corporate Yoda with a stylist. Cue the montage. Her speaking tours, branded lunchboxes, and podcast episodes where she unironically discusses finding balance. While standing in a designer kitchen the size of a Whole Foods, Gutfeld let the silence hang. We're being sold a brand, a lifestyle, Michelle Obama. And guess what? It's not about empowering you. It's about marketing to you. It's inspirational capitalism dressed up in Instagram captions. Then he brought out the hammer. She says she doesn't want to run for president, he said, raising an eyebrow. And maybe she doesn't, but that hasn't stopped her from giving speeches that sound suspiciously like campaign warm-ups. You know, just in case America gets nostalgic for soaring rhetoric that says absolutely nothing.
Maybe so, but her analysis seems a symptom of a greater problem that contributed to her party's loss. It goes back to seeing the group and not the person. I call it IPB, identity politics blindness. They lost not because Hillary was a woman. They lost because all they saw was a woman. Meanwhile, Trump took nothing for granted. Fact is, many voters would have happily voted for a woman, just not that one. Because unlike Trump, she didn't speak to their concerns. She only spoke of her entitlement. She just assumed that she had the vote. And just assuming a woman must vote for a woman seems pretty insulting from a man. Humans are more complex, surprising, and interesting than liberals give.
That line, lethal. Gutfeld leaned in, mimicking Michelle's tone with arms wide and a syrupy voice. We need to rise above. We need to come together. We need to hope. We need to buy my hardcover edition for $29.99. Now available at Target. The crowd roared. Then he zeroed in on her favorite move, The martyr card. Michelle loves reminding us how hard it was to live in the White House. He said, how she had to be perfect, couldn't mess up, couldn't be too black, too loud. You know, just like every other first lady who had to host state dinners and decorate Christmas trees. He paused, then added dryly. Except none of the others landed a post-White House podcast produced by Barack Obama, featuring Michelle Obama. That's like writing your own 5-star Yelp review. By now, the gloves were fully off. Gutfeld didn't hold back. She talks about imposter syndrome, he said, while being one of the most celebrated, praised, and protected public figures of our time. Lady, if you're an imposter, what chance do the rest of us have? You're everywhere on my Wheaties box, in my Spotify algorithm, and somehow, even in my dreams.
Michelle Obama has openly admitted that she and Barack sleep in separate bedrooms. Here's how it works. She sleeps downstairs, and he likes men.
Michelle Obama is the algorithm, Gutfeld said, leaning back with a deadpan stare. We used to say Big Brother is watching now. Big Michelle is podcasting. And just when you thought he was finished, Gutfeld revved up for the grand finale. Michelle's real power isn't her charm, it's her untouchability. She's bulletproof. Criticize her, and suddenly you're a sexist, a racist, a monster. But when she sells you recycled platitudes with a $90 candle and a motivational playlist, that's called leadership. The audience sat somewhere between stunned and thrilled. They weren't used to hearing someone go after Michelle Obama with this much energy, precision, and, dare we say, glee. It's curated. It's manufactured, he continued. It's politics as lifestyle branding. He took a sip and added casually, at this point, the only thing more polished than her PR team is her arms. Laughter rolled through the room. But just as it began to fade, Gutfeld dropped the line that would ignite a firestorm across social media.
In the latest installment of What Happened in an Election That Occurred a Year and a Half Ago, Michelle Obama was asked how Trump won, and she laid the blame on Hillary. Just kidding, she blamed sexism from women against women.
In light of this last election, I'm concerned about us as women and how we think. If we're not comfortable with the notion that a woman could be our president compared to what? You know, we have to have that conversation with ourselves.
As the punchline, self-importance with a side of kale, landed, the room cracked up, but it didn't end there. Gutfeld shifted tone, just for a beat not too serious, but just enough to signal there was something deeper behind the smirk. The real danger, he said, isn't Michelle herself. It's that we keep falling for the same trick-glossy speeches, emotional buzzwords, vague empowerment slogans all used to distract from the reality that, beneath all the inspiration, the machine keeps running exactly the same. That line hit differently, because Greg Gutfeld wasn't just making fun of Michelle Obama, he was dissecting the entire political celebrity industrial complex she so effortlessly embodies. He wasn't mocking her accomplishments, he was asking why they come coated in layers of media varnish and Instagram-ready lighting. Why do we confuse visibility with authenticity? Why do we cheer for relatability when someone's idea of a hard day is choosing between giving a TED Talk or appearing on a Vogue cover? And then, like a sniper armed with a punchline instead of a rifle, Gutfeld delivered his final shot with calm precision and brutal clarity.
Michelle's been busy working on a new podcast, and so far, it's been a flop. The first 2 episodes have been up all day and only gotten a few thousand views on YouTube. Half of them are probably primetime producers. But still, Michelle's spilling the family secrets, like how Barry gets on her nerves. Listen.
Barack, he had to adjust to what on time was for me.
Because he was on that island time.
Well, but, I've got this husband who's like, when it's time to leave, it's 3 o'clock, he's getting up and going to the bathroom. And I was like, dude, like 3 o'clock departure means you've done all that, It's like, don't start looking for your glasses,
She's not leading a movement, she's leading a marketing campaign, and we're the ones buying it. Along with her athleisure collection, mic drop. But this wasn't just destruction, it was disruption. Gutfeld didn't simply dismantle Michelle Obama's image. He cracked open the shiny, impenetrable shell that surrounds every political figure turned lifestyle because in the end, it wasn't about left or right, it was about real or fake. And Greg Gutfeld, love him or hate him, has a nose for the fake. Like a bloodhound on espresso. When he set his sights on Michelle, he wasn't attacking her as a person, he was going after the fog machine, the spotlight, the curated echo chamber. He was saying what few, in prime time, ever dare say out loud, that maybe, just maybe, the most relatable woman in America is another illusion package to keep you inspired, distracted, and comfortably asleep. Whether you agreed or not, one thing was clear. Gutfeld didn't just criticize Michelle Obama, he uninstalled the myth. And just when the echoes of laughter began to fade, he leaned in like a movie villain, revealing the final twist in the plot. One last truth. no one was ready to admit.
Talk to you about Michelle Obama's ongoing midlife meltdown, like her, like as you put it, her Stegosaurus hairdos. The utterance the other day, she says she's transitioning. I mean, I think we both know what she's trying to do by using that word.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you make of all of this? Like, what's going on in that psyche?
I think that transitioning line was meant to get attention because her podcast is failing. No one wants to watch it, and she's not used to that. You know, she's used to being the center of attention. Everyone's interested in me. I don't have to try hard. And so now...
Let's talk about the kids, Gutfeld said with a grin, because every good franchise needs a sequel. And Michelle's got it lined up like Marvel Phase 4 the foundation work, the youth outreach, the college initiative. But here's the kicker, he continued. When was the last time any of those programs produced real, measurable results? He paused, letting it sink in. We don't get outcomes, we get merch. The camera cut to a smirking panelist nodding, while the audience braced for impact, double quotes. See, this is the part nobody wants to say out loud, Gutfeld went on. Most of Michelle's legacy, its vibes, its emotional resonance. Curated playlists, strategic lighting, and speeches about perseverance backed by a gospel choir. And sure, it feels good. It always does. Then came the punch. But you know what else feels good? A warm bath. That doesn't mean it's fixing the damn pipes. He wasn't wrong. The emotional messaging had become Michelle's most valuable currency, but Gutfeld wasn't buying it. Not tonight. Her TED Talks, he added, are just motivational. Mad Libs, you are powerful. You are enough. You are seen. Great. Now tell that to the small business owner being crushed by regulations.
Michelle Obama surprised fans on our new podcast by saying her pet peeve about her husband is that he's chronically late. For example, we're still waiting on him to admit he's from Kenya. And as for Barack's pet peeve about Michelle, he's mad that she keeps leaving the toilet seat up. When she cleans it. When she cleans it.
Tell that to the working parent, Gutfeld continued, who doesn't have time to reflect on their power because they're too busy driving Uber after a night shift. Now, it was getting real. This isn't just about Michelle, he clarified. It's about the culture she helped sculpt a world where sincerity is replaced with slogans. Where making a difference means changing your profile picture. He wasn't angry. He was energized like someone finally voicing what the room had quietly suspected for years but never dared to say. You can't be the voice of the voiceless. He said, when you're speaking from a $12,000 Sensa couch, lit by a halo lamp, with your private chef prepping quinoa in the next room. Boom, pin drop moment. Then, Gutfeld went further. He compared Michelle Obama's cultural influence to an iPhone commercial. Sleek, progressive sounding, and universally desired. But the moment it glitches or fails to deliver, he said, you don't question the system, you blame the user. Michelle Obama, he claimed, is Apple politics. Shiny, expensive, and somehow always immune to criticism. The metaphor might sound absurd, he admitted, but it fits. She sells empowerment, like Starbucks sells identity, personalized, pleasant, and of course, wildly overpriced.
Than the wonderful Megyn Kelly in the United States. Now, why is Michelle Obama whinging? She seems to always be whinging. Why are things so hard for her right now?
I know. I mean, because when you're thinking of victims of this awful world, you think of Michelle Obama and how terrible we've all been to her. This woman is a one-woman destitution derby. Every time we check in on her at her podcast, she is feeling sorry for herself. She is criticizing Barack Obama or this country. She never has a positive word to say about anything. And the latest example was when she went on this other guy's podcast, Jay Shetty. She goes and sits down with him, and he asks her, what are you afraid of? And she starts off by saying, well, it's not, my fears aren't for me. You know, I think about the streets. My fears aren't for me.
Well, in this current climate for me, it's, you know.
Someone in the crowd lost an audible snort of laughter broke the tension. Gutfeld gave them a subtle nod, like a conductor acknowledging his orchestra. Then came the closing argument, the moment everyone sensed was coming. But that still hit like a thunderclap. She doesn't need to run for office, he said calmly, because she already governs something more powerful than policy, perception. He let it breathe. She's the empress of optics. And when you control how people feel more than how they think, you don't need a ballot, you wield something far stronger, unquestioned influence. Now it wasn't just a roast, it was a revelation. Gutfeld leaned back, hands folded. Michelle's superpower isn't her intelligence or her resume. What she really is your brand manager. And guess what? You're not the client, you're the product. Silence. Then a wave of uproarious laughter and applause, because in one calculated, devastating monologue, Greg Gutfeld had done what so few dared to attempt. He stripped away the glow, the glam, the carefully curated mystique of America's most polished icon and revealed the machinery beneath. Not out of malice, not out of politics, but because someone had to lift the curtain. And Gutfeld, he brought a